Sturbridge Conservation Commission meeting, Thursday, April 19th, 2018. We're located in the Center Office Building, 301 Main Street, the second floor. It is 6 p.m. We have a quorum check. We have 3 members present, 2 absent. We do have a quorum, however, all votes will need to be unanimous to pass. Do we have any committee updates?
The only Trails Committee comments to make are that Saturday is Earth Day. Saturday, we invite everybody who wishes to do any work on the trails to arrive between 8 and 12 at the Shattuck Road entrance. We will be distributing them into groups of 4 to 6 people as a team and providing them with tools and gloves if they need them, and send them off. We will have water there, although you can bring your own water container if you wish. And it will be 8 to 12 as the normal hours. Sometimes people leak over into the 1 o'clock time frame. And at noontime, there will be pizza served to all of the volunteers. It is our annual supposed cleanup, but the day crew went out and did a lot of the cleanup. So in fact, what the Trails Committee will be doing is working on several of the trails, especially in the lead mine area, because the Camp Robinson Crusoe dams came down last fall, and the crew that took the dams down has been working there for the previous week. They've finally taken all their equipment out, but they did several plantings and they refreshed some of the trail beds, so we'll be spreading more of the cinder on the trail beds in order to firm them up again. So everybody's welcome. Any of you guys who are bored on Saturday, come on out, we'll make you unbored.
Just going to add to that, the Conservation Commission is actually sponsoring a town-wide Earth Day cleanup both Saturday and Sunday. We have a sign-up sheet downstairs. You can get trash bags. You can leave them. Just mark where you're going to leave them, and DPW will pick up the trash Monday if you're interested.
Anything else? Open space? Nothing? CPA? Rebecca, do you have some stuff we can sign before the...
Yep. We have 4 orders of conditions and a certificate of compliance while we're waiting. So the certificate of compliance request is a partial, and it was for the DPW work on the roads. This one is Beach Ave. So it's just a partial for the actual lot, and it was the road work for DPW. So we've been doing these, we've seen quite a few of these, Long Ave, Beach Ave. It's just for the actual road frontage in front of this one particular lot. So I went out there and that's all set. And then I have 4 orders of conditions for projects that we approved at our last meeting. The first one is 300 Clark Road. All of these orders of conditions, I sent you the conditions to look at ahead of time. So this is 300 Clark Road. This was for the small house addition.
Okay.
This one is OFS on Hall Road, which is the retaining wall replacement at the tank farm, as they're calling it.
The mysterious pseudo-concrete.
Mm-hmm.
18 Tantascwa Shore Drive. This is a septic replacement. Last one, 52 South Shore Drive. This was the new well and water line to the house, and I did, when I sent you the draft orders on these, they did revise that and move that water line along the walkway as we requested.
Perfect.
So, yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
Yep. So we still have 10 minutes.
Yep.
Do we have some permits we can do?
Yeah,
too,
we have
or-
letter permits, and we also have the approval of the minutes, too.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you want to do letter permits first, or minutes?
Do I have a motion on the minutes?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the 4th as written.
A second?
Since I watched it on television and read the minutes, I will second that.
All in favor?
Oh, that was supposed to go too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
This old guy's got to stick together.
So, this is a letter permit application for 61 Clark Road. They are building, I have a few photos.
Is that what's on the screen right now?
Yeah, this is the project location. It's all within their yard. And it's just a small deck between the garage and the house and the pool. You've seen a few projects in the past couple of years at this site, David.
Yeah, we did a
Yeah,
site
you guys
visit.
remembered, you've seen this site before.
Right.
Small project exempt from the Wetlands Protection Act, so it'd be only under the local bylaw.
Do we have any details on how they're anchoring that deck? Are they putting in pilings or?
I believe it is just pilings.
Okay.
Yeah, deck
Any-
will span 11.5 feet between the garage and pool.
No disposal of any of the dirt behind the house?
Correct,
So-
yep, he did come in, and I talked to him about
Good.
that stuff, and I said we could just put that in as like conditions for our
You're going to
letter
put that
permit.
as part of the conditions?
Yep, yep.
I'll make a motion that we approve it.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Okay.
Make sure that we have discussion and ask the public if they have any questions.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Bylaw, and I will condition just a soil there.
What's the address on that again?
61 Clark?
Okay.
And 23 Old Hamilton is just a, it's a single tree. I have a couple photos. This is the tree right here. It's a hemlock. It's pretty far from the lake. It's probably over 100 feet away. It's one hemlock. You can't see the houses right on the side here. Let me rotate that. So right, you're seeing the tree right here, the house. He's got a power line. You can see right here that comes across.
Yep.
And then it goes down. It's heavily vegetated down there. They just moved into the property, so I talked to him a lot about, any future plan, things like that. He was open to replanting, but they want to put a garden, things over there, so he didn't really know what he wants to do. But I didn't think in this situation that replacement of this tree in that location would be necessary. So it's one tree far away from the water, so.
Okay.
And it is dying. I have some additional pictures actually here too, if you want to see.
Thanks, Becky. Yeah, that looks pretty good.
It's in bad shape.
Yeah.
Did you see it, Steve? Mm-hmm. Okay.
We should check to see if we have any walk-ins.
Do we have any walk-ins this evening? No. Okay.
Looking for a motion?
Yep.
I move we accept this proposal to remove that tree.
Second.
Any discussion? Any comments from the public? All right. All in favor?
All right. So this next one is another tree. Let's see. This is Cove Street on Cedar Lake. So in this picture, you can just see, I went out there and talked to the property owner. We went out there and just kind of briefly looked at it afterwards. There's 2 trees here. This is one tree, and right behind it, close to the water, is this tree here, which you can see the rot there.
Yep.
A large limb just fell off. It's really close to his dock here. You can see his dock right here. He's concerned that, you know, more limbs or the tree's gonna fall. He had an arborist look at it. It's in pretty bad condition, so he'd like to take that down. He does have like a large lawn in front, but he owns a good portion over here, which he's left all the trees in the back here too. This maple that would be left will hopefully kind of branch out more and provide some shade there, so didn't really anticipate a big concern. He also has some more trees on the other side of the property. He didn't really want to plant any on his lawn area either, so.
We actually thought that taking down that tree would permit the other tree to expand its canopy.
Right. Yeah,
So
so
the amount of shading for the water would probably, over time, remain the same.
Okay. Do I have a motion for this?
Move that tree.
Second,
Any
with
comments?
the conditions that have already been indicated. Because that's gonna be tricky. You wanna make sure that it's handled the right way. You don't wanna drop it on the ice
Right.
and then pull it out.
Right, and I did ask him and tell him that we would need some more information from him about how he would do the removal, and obviously no stumping or grinding, and that's a typical condition I'd put in all of those too, so.
Right.
So what are you gonna do for conditions if you haven't heard how he's gonna actually remove that tree, which is a good point. We might be kind of.
I can just tell him he needs to let us know ahead of time, pretty much, to give us a tree removal plan for approval prior to the start of work.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So we'll look at that at another meeting.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Any comments from the public? All in favor? Okay, we're good.
Yep, next one is 202 Lake Road. We recently reviewed and approved a raise and rebuild of a single-family house at this project site. This is on Big Alum. So this is, if you remember, were you on the site visit before? So closer to the road, there's a lot of trees. The house is pretty far back. So this is close to the road. There's 2 large hemlocks that are very dead. His property line ends here. There's a small wetland over here, and then across the road there's a wetland. There's a lot of trees right here, so it's just these 2. I didn't really see the need for replanting
It's
this.
a long ways from the lake, right?
Exactly, it's
Yeah.
very far. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. So they're just asking to remove these 2 for now and keep it separate from their project, their orders and conditions that they have. So
Okay.
I don't anticipate any concerns.
Do I have a motion?
I move we allow those trees to be removed.
Second.
Any conditions that Becky has put together.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any comments? All in favor?
They all went that fast.
Yeah.
All the easy stuff is done.
Oh, actually, we have the town barn project too, but we only have 2 minutes, so we can wait on that one.
Okay. In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area, and/or within the 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetland Bylaws and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to opening the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of the legal newspaper advertisement. If these items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any of the visitors have not legibly signed in yet, please do. Also, if any visitors are recording this meeting, please let us know. Thank you. All right, looks like it's 6:15. We have notice of intent, DEP number 300-1013, 336 The Trail, Anthony Reno. SFH and dock within the riverfront, represented by Burton Engineering.
Okay. Thank you. Frank, do you have the legal ad too, or?
Do not have a copy of the legal ad.
Let's see. I can try to look it up. There's a website.
Okay, yeah, I apologize for that.
It's okay.
Usually all
Can't open them.
folder, I saw the letters, so should leave.
We can, but we can't take any motion on it.
Be a quick one after all.
Rebecca, you've used this before, right?
Yeah, I think that's how I did it.
Yeah, just Southbridge Evening News.
Yeah.
It would have been last week.
It's not there.
There's a couple more pages. There's
Yeah.
planning board.
Is it posted?
I know Nicole took the job again. Never lost it. Apologies to the commission, I said on that part, I'm sorry.
I think we have 3 more pages here.
I don't remember what the date would have been. I know I've tried searching.
You search by town?
Well, I noticed before, like, to search by Southbridge for the Southbridge Evening News, to have it come up that way. But I don't remember what day it would have been.
It's not your responsibility.
We're going back in time. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in February now.
Older meetings, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have to show the proof that it was posted in the newspaper, like the legal ad, in order to open the public hearing. Legally, we can't open a public hearing without knowing that.
They're pretty far back.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the more recent ones?
Call her and ask her where she posted it. Yes, you
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well,
If not,
yeah, if we can't open the public hearing, then we'll have to reschedule.
Yeah, we can issue a continuation.
Can you issue a continuation
You can't.
without it
Oh,
opening?
you can't, it's
Yeah.
not open.
It's not
Yeah,
open,
open.
yeah.
Give them another date to come in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Can
2
we
weeks
have
from
an
now.
informal conversation with them
What good
as
will
like
it
a
do?
walk-in, or no?
We can't take a vote on it.
Right.
which is, okay.
Can we give him a second to see if he?
Sure, yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Yeah, you've got time. so.
Okay.
That's a good question, if we can just treat it as a walk-in and have a discussion.
Only because we have our doc guy, the
Yeah,
question.
Right.
I apologize, I don't want to look other items, I'll look for it on my phone, she said she placed it, so I'll try to track it down.
I think the only thing is we'd have to, whatever's said, we'd have to repeat after the public, after the notification has gone out, in case there's someone that's interested, so.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. So we can treat this as a, you know,
as a pause, and if we find it, can we open the hearing?
you're right, right.
Sure, you can wait until after all the other public hearings have taken place,
Understood.
and if you found it,
Okay.
Right.
we'll go with it.
We appreciate it for this oversight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wait, what was that on the bottom?
That was Charlton Conservation Commission.
Sorry, I'll look for it, so.
Okay. Thanks, Frank.
Oh, wait, what's this one?
What's that one?
Yeah, I don't know if I had,
Yeah, that's it.
yep, all right, yep, we got it.
Yep, 336
All
the
right.
trail.
I think I might have just had another
Sure.
criteria on there that kept it out, so.
Thank you, Rebecca.
You're
for
welcome.
doing
So that should be sufficient. This is a website that shows that things were publicly done, so
that. Very good.
Right. I'm good.
useful sometimes. All
You want to get Frank back here? There we go.
right,
Start. Okay. I apologize for that.
it's okay.
I'm blaming school break because Nicole, who takes care of everything and has babied me for the last 2 years, is up in Maine with her family. So I apologize.
Please announce yourself.
Frank McCary with Burton Engineering, here to see me with Tony Reno, a prospective property owner and applicant on the project. So we're here this evening for a single-family house for a project on Big Allen Pond. The subject parcel is approximately 17.5 acres. It's a primarily wooded parcel with a paved driveway apron and gravel driveway leading to the top of the site. That was permitted under a previous order of conditions, which you had issued a certificate of compliance fairly recently. The work was done almost 10 years ago, and it's been sitting there and marketed and whatnot, and so the Renos would like to purchase the property. So they do have a purchase and sale pending, receiving some approvals from the commission. One of the main things that they wanted to make sure that they were able to get along with the property was a dock to be able to use the lake. So they had already submitted to the selectmen for a dock approval. They've received approval from the selectmen for the dock. And so we're here this evening for the development plans of the house, driveway, and the dock location. So that, like, as I mentioned, the site's primarily wooded with an existing access drive that we were planning on maintaining. The end of it's paved. Some of the resource areas are Big Allen Lake and the bank associated with that. There is bordering vegetated wetlands in this area, and outletting the lake is a perennial stream. So there's riverfront area associated with the stream, as well as the local and state buffer zones associated with that. And due to the nature of the slopes, there would be a 500-foot buffer as well because of the steeper slope, so that's shown on there as well. So the total limited disturbance out of the 17.5 acres is approximately 3.5 acres. The site is intended to be cleared that 3.5 acres, and some of the disturbance basically trying to get the 12-foot wide paved driveway in. The reason why we're choosing to pave it is because it's around 10%, between 9 and 10%, and so it's fairly steep, so we want to make sure that we stabilize it. Versus gravel over time will tend to rut out a little bit, so we're proposing a paved driveway, crown driveway, as shown on the details, with 2-foot shoulders either side that'll be 4 to 6 inch crushed stone. And basically we want to stabilize those shoulders given the slopes. That water can get moving fairly fast down the pavement. So we're providing nice wide shoulders with stone stabilization to help with the stormwater runoff from the site. The proposed house is proposing to have a walkout basement, and it's set on the side slope here. And we're proposing there's 2 high points on the site, and we're proposing to lower these a little bit to level out the area for a usable lawn area. The proposed tree line is shown here, and there'll be silt fence and wattle along the tree line, and there'll be a vegetated buffer maintained. So the limited clearing here, as stated, was about 3.5 acres out of the 17. The remaining acreage will remain wooded. One of the questions that I think was proposed to the Renos is how do they plan on getting down to the dock? And so a document was provided to the commission describing how they would get down to the dock, essentially taking a golf cart, leaving it at the end of the driveway, and walking down to the dock. As far as overall timing and scheduling of everything, it's anticipated that upon receiving approvals and purchasing the property, that the project would be built out this summer and primarily used, the house itself would be resided in next year. And use of the dock would be really parking cars in this area and walking down to the dock to use the dock in this season of using it. The idea would be to store the dock up by the garage area and leaving the golf cart down in this area. And I think once they get into the house next year, I think we would look for a subsequent filing to establish more use out of this area down here, an area to leave the golf cart and to have a walkway. We're not currently proposing that at this point. I think they'd like to get into the house first, see how they're using, so they can accurately propose what they want to do with it. Once they've, parked their cars in the driveway, walk down it, they'll realize that they don't want to do that they want some place for the golf cart. But right now, we're not proposing it. Right now, this is all we're proposing is the dock, which again, they'll speak to a little bit more. The dock specialist will speak to a little bit more how he proposes to put it in, take it out, and it would be stored up by the house. So really, it's just putting in the dock and taking out the dock and walking down to the dock is what we're proposing at this point. Again, part of the reason that we're not detailing more in this area, it's not that we don't intend to at some point. Part of it was timing of the purchase and sale, that there is a time component of this. We lost some time due to the fact that the old order of conditions was never closed out, so we wanted to close that out before filing so there wasn't overlapping work. So we didn't know that was in effect, and so we needed to close that before we filed. So we lost a little bit of time getting that closed out before we filed. And then we had intended to flag all this area to see what was usable space. And again, we kind of got hit with a lot of snow, and by the time the wetland scientist was going to be able to get out there, it would have pushed our filing timeline back. So right now, we're really just trying to get approval for the house so they can move forward with the purchase and sale, the house and the dock. That would allow them to move forward with the purchase and sale, pull a building permit, and get going. And like you said, further use of this area, we already have the wetland scientist set up to do it. We have Art Allen set up to do the flagging in that area. And I think once we flag it, we would be relying on some of his expertise on what we should do to maximize use of this area and protection of that area. As of right now, again, we just want to take the dock in and out, and there is an existing concrete landing area that we would be using to try to minimize any disturbance to that area. So it really would just be foot traffic for this first season, with subsequent filing to do anything else besides just walking to and from that dock area.
Okay.
That's my spiel. We'll open it up to any questions.
Do you want to talk about the dock a little bit more? Do you want to just do the house first and the driveway and then the dock?
Let's do it all, I think.
Okay.
First.
Okay.
Yeah.
When do the dock?
So if
Yeah.
you're going to speak to the dock.
I took some pictures, so Steve didn't get to see it, so I can pull those up.
Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Bill Matchett from Inland Docks Incorporated. So there's a concrete pier there. We're going to set the ramp so they can access the dock from the concrete pier, so there's a no trip hazard. The docks will be not anchored to the lake bed. They're footpads, aluminum footpads that sit on the lake bed, so there's no disturbance. There's also plastic wheels to be able to roll the docks out for ease of removal. So there's minimum disturbance. We have probably 35 docks in the town of Sturbridge with this brand. It's shoreside docks out of Oxford, Mass. And probably in the total of Central Mass and Western Mass, we have in excess of 1,000. So there's minimum disturbance. It's a modular dock, so it's easy to remove. The decking comes off. Everything can be stored in a tight-knit, out-of-sight area. So it's pretty less invasive. There's no drilling. There's no concrete piers put in the water. It's just aluminum footpad, and I have a brochure if you guys would like to look at it.
Yeah, we have some pictures here, so you want to see the brochure? Or?
No.
Okay.
So that's pretty much.
And so how do you need to adhere it to the concrete pad at all? It just rests on it?
It just rests on it, correct. So there's like no disturbance at all.
And when you take it out, would you need to like wheel it up
So
over that? Or?
where that location is
Yep.
there, everything would come out of that location because there's no disturbance there. It's pretty much open. So everything would come right out in that area, and then wherever the location to be stored is where it would go.
would you wheel it up over the bank, or would you like, just be
Or
able to lift
pick
it at that, pick it up? Okay.
Wheel it, pick it. I mean, once the decking's off the frames weigh 100 pounds, so 2 people
Okay.
can take them out.
How do you get it up the hill? Because I think a comment was made that the dock's going to be stored up at the house, so how does it get up?
Yeah, so I have a 20-foot trailer. We'd load the frames and the decking on the trailer, drive it up the driveway, put it up by the house.
Okay.
So I do seasonal installs, so we put the docks in, we take them out. Most locations where the docks are stored, you know, because most people have waterfront property and their houses are right on the water, we usually store them to the side of the house, you know, so the docks are easy to be moved and they're not really invasive of anything.
It looked like there was quite a bit of separation between the lake and where the end of the drive was. That's why I was wondering how you're
Yeah,
gonna
so
get
we
that
put it
far.
on a trailer and move it. I do have several places that we have to do that. There's a neighbor right next door to them that has their dock stored, you know, on their property right there, right up towards the road. And that's one of our brands, you know, this brand actually. And it's just stored like that. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to go up by the house, but if that's what needs to be, that's what we can do.
For us, I mean, just for us, because the house is, you know, a ways away, just makes it neater and cleaner if it's right by the house, and then, rather than having a dock, you know, and that parcel of land, as you guys know, is very thin.
Right.
So putting anything on there permanently is not gonna work. So keep it up by the garage.
Okay. Did you have any other material you wanted to present? No. All set?
Thanks, Bill.
You don't, just curious, you don't have any issues with, like wave action in the dock moving? Is it heavy enough? Because it's kind
No,
of nice
the-
to see a design like this.
Yeah, so the decking panels weigh 45 pounds apiece. So on a 4x10 or 4x12 dock, so 4x10 you'd have 4 panels, 4x12 you'd have 5 panels. So if you do the math, you know, once that deck sets, it's not going anywhere. I have a 22-foot pontoon boat and I have a 20-foot ski boat, and I put it on a 25-foot dock, one on each side, and the dock doesn't go anywhere.
So let's start with you. Any other comments about the?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I kind of broke it down a little bit with the dock, and I've had some conversations with you guys about it a little bit. I think that we can be clear in our orders of conditions that we're just approving the dock at this time, and also be clear that, you know, understanding that no vegetation maintenance is permitted on the bank. We really want to see that bank stay intact as much as possible, which is important not only for your site, but the road, you know, there as well. So, and we can work, if you want to come back towards thinking about how to use that space. Like when we were out at our site visit, we kind of had some conversations about that. Well, they're going to be here and use this, so is there a way that maybe we can make some improvements and give you guys a walkway, and maybe on the other side have a parking spot for your golf cart or not? So I think those things are options that would be benefit, you know, something that you would need, but we could see as a benefit for the lake by maybe adding some vegetation and making sure that it's, you know, very clear that people aren't going to be trampling the bank and impacting it there. Another thing too is because that retaining wall associated with the dam is there too. So not that there'd be a lot of action, but if, you know, eventually that bank eroded behind that, there could be some concerns there for that too. So it's kind of important to keep that bank intact. But I think, right, we can be very clear in the orders that we're just approving the dock and work out those details later with you guys. So those are my comments about the dock, the driveway. You know, Frank talked about it a little bit, just making sure that finding a way, and you talked about, you know, crowning that before.
Yeah, so the grading doesn't reflect that very well, but if you go to the detail is clear that it's crowned with a 1.5% cross pitch in the shoulders. So in the top left there, you'll see the detail, and it's probably hard to read everything from here, but it's 12 feet wide, 2-foot shoulders on either side, with 18-inch deep of the, I think, 3 to 6 inch rock that we wanted to stabilize those shoulders, knowing that, you know, the steepness of the driveway and it being paved, that erosion would be a concern. I didn't provide a swale next to it because I didn't necessarily want to concentrate it. I wanted to have the shoulder so it could infiltrate, and then when it gets the chance to daylight, sheet off, as opposed to concentrating the flow. Because right now it basically sheets down the side of the hill. So the idea was to slow down the velocities using the rock, allow some infiltration, and then when it gets down to the lower elevations, when we're not into the cut, that it would be able to sheet off. And that was the idea of the driveway design.
Okay. So I'm a little confused about this. For tonight, we're just approving the dock, we're not approving the driveway? Or
No, it's the dock and the houses we're seeking.
Right, I just
approval
meant
for.
any work by the lake, the only thing that we're approving down there is the
Okay.
dock, not a walkway or,
Okay.
vegetation maintenance or anything
Right,
like that,
okay.
but we are looking at
We understand that
approving.
there would be separate filing fees and stuff like that, and again, as I explained earlier, we would like to present all that stuff, but it was a bit of a timing issue. We still want to present it to you, we still want to get your feedback and have the back and forth dialogue as far as what enhancements we can do for what we're doing down there. But it was a bit of a timing issue that we'd like to be able to get approvals tonight for the work, just the work that we're showing, and get on the agenda as soon as we can for any additional work that would be down in the dock area.
And to be honest with you, I mean, I'd like to, where, the house is gonna take a full year to build, and where, I'd like to see, my wife and I would like to see like how we would use it, and then come back to you and say, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I mean,
So you're gonna go ahead and put the dock in?
put the dock in at some point later in the summer, if it gets approved, obviously, to do that, and then leave it in, and then kind of figure out over the summer how we would like to.
Wish we had
yeah,
this here. And
bring
then
it-
come
bring it to you
and say,
guys
hey,
again.
we want to put this here, is that okay? And if we do that, what are we impacting and how do we mitigate that? So that's,
So we're not in the house this year, so we're gonna use it minimally just to see how it is.
Yeah, and probably no structures down there, like the
No.
shed or anything, because you'd be within that.
It's too, yeah, I just don't want to put, I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
So, one other comment, the detail for the driveway shows, it being seated with a fabric blanket too. Is that proposed, or I think it's this one down here, the slope stabilization detail,
yeah, so those are the side slopes, which,
off after the crushed stone?
yeah, so those are just the side slopes. So if you go back to the grading plan, you can see the grading on either side of the roadway, and that was basically to get the full 12-foot width of the pavement, and then to be able to do the shoulders on either side, it required us cutting into the slopes to widen the profile a bit. And then, so we're tracing the grades a little bit at a 2-to-1. So we provided a slope stabilization detail for the 2-to-1, and then that would just be allowed to revegetate on its own after. So we would stabilize it, seed it, and then just let the woods crawl back in towards the road. So it wasn't meant to be, we don't want to rip-wrap it because we want it to be vegetated, we want it to grow back. And so the limited clearing there is what we need to cut it in, but then we would expect it to revegetate back down to the roadway.
Okay. And do you think any of this lower section will sheet flow into the road here? Because I guess the concern would be because the
Right.
river's
Well,
on the other
Like I
side.
said, the idea was to pitch it, so it wouldn't be any worse than that driveway apron, the paved apron that's there now. So the idea is to pitch it, get it into those trenches which have some capacity to infiltrate. It might not be a lot, but it'll at least minimum slow the velocities, and it'll let sediment, if there is any sediments, to settle out. So if the water does get to the bottom of the hill, it'd be clean water. And the idea would be some of it would sheet off to the east, I believe, is to the trail, and then the rest of it would sheet off to the left, to the west rather, which is the existing wetland in that corner.
Okay. All right, and then,
And for the house runoff, the idea would be just to have the downspouts just sheet out into the lawn area.
okay. And just so they know that this would probably be like a lawn or type of field type
Yes.
setting, so it would be vegetated, maybe fruit trees in the future.
lawn, fruit trees, some shrubs, grasses.
Can I see the buffers again? Because that's the one thing I couldn't see at the
Yeah.
other details, so.
You like down here by here, like down by the
Yeah,
driveway?
so that's the
and the road?
200, 100-foot
We have a,
wetland.
yep,
Yep,
100
okay.
foot, this is the
Okay.
200-foot riverfront here,
Yep.
Yep.
so we end there, and that's a 200-foot buffer zone.
And then the 500-foot is up by the house, is that?
Yeah, that's,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So everything from the house and the yard, all that's all sort of beyond the 500, or it's
Yeah.
right at the 500, is that?
well, then we get the 500 from the lake too, I think, 'cause this
You gotta
is
come in
steep
two
here.
directions, Steve.
Okay.
So,
trying to think of where, let me see where it is. Yeah, if you want to pull up the sheet before that, the existing conditions, it probably shows up better.
this is the
Are these lots
500.
owned
Yeah,
by-
it's actually, yeah.
Yeah, it's right here.
It's down there, so it encompasses, yeah.
Yeah.
Are these lots owned by other people or something, or what's it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And
So
it's-
you have a property that just stretches behind all these other properties?
Yes.
Yeah, and the road's right here, so you know the road comes along. And a lot of these are properties that go across the road, and the house is on the other side.
Gotcha.
And the reason why the house is situated where it is because they wanted a walkout basement to it. Otherwise, it would have been farther, I guess, it would have been more on the top of the hill, but they they wanted to set it up to have the walkout basement to it, and that's why it was put on that side slope a little bit.
Okay.
And the foundation will act as the retaining wall for the walkout. There's no retaining walls proposed. The house itself would act as that retaining wall.
Those are my
Any-
comments,
any-
yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, real quick, because the driveway has such a slope to it, would you consider putting some sort of check dams along the side of the?
Well, yeah, so I didn't propose swaling it, and that's why we have the shoulder, is basically I want the water to sheet off and hit the rock, and it either gets, infiltrate through the rock, or the rock will slow it down.
What's the size of the stone?
3 to 6 inch, so it's beefy stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
okay.
because the velocities I know are going to be pretty substantial. So I didn't do just gravel or just stone. I wanted
Stuff
substantial.
that's not going to wash away.
Exactly, substantial, because that's the whole point of it. So
It's, yeah,
yes,
it's pretty steep, but, 3 to 6.
yeah, it's good
probably
size.
slow it
That-
down. I need a check dam. I can understand.
Right. Yeah, if had I swaled it, then we would have had check dams probably with that slope. We would have had check dams every 50 feet.
Right.
If not less.
Okay.
That's why, again, I didn't want to swale it, because had I swaled it, it would have just been concentrating until I get to the bottom, and then what? And then I need to outlet a stream, and, I didn't want to concentrate the flow. I wanted
Yeah.
to keep it spread out as much as possible.
Yeah, the fact that you're going perpendicular to the slope, though, it was my concern.
Right.
Is that.
Yep. And,
Well, what you do is this looks like a good plan, you see if it works. If it doesn't, you figure out how to fix it.
Oh, exactly. And like I said, if we had to do something towards the bottom of the driveway to do a little plunge pool, if there is some channelization, there's room to do that.
Right.
So, and like I said, there's plenty of real estate to do improvements if we need to.
Right.
And obviously, before we get the order of condition, or before we would get a certificate of compliance, all that stuff would need to be addressed.
Right, I was just gonna say that, we could always, if,
So
before
as it's,
issuance.
well, even as it's going on, once they pave it, after they pave it, and, that's not what we were expecting to happen, then we would definitely,
Everything can be fixed.
like I said, I think the stone 2 feet wide on either shoulder is 18 inches deep, will have a decent capacity to really slow down those velocities.
Now, as far as thank you, I appreciate that. The dock,
Yes.
so it's 4 feet wide, and you've got room to slide that in. There are some trees, there's some limbs hanging out over the lake.
Go back to the picture there, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. I could see a little bit of pruning, that one limb kind of sticking out in your way, but we would really like to not see some wholesale removal of any vegetation.
That's
right
not the
there.
intent. Like I said, if they decided that they wanted to do anything like that, it would be a whole separate filing, and that would be a whole separate conversation as far as mitigation and bank, and all that sort of stuff. So right now, the idea is to minimal.
Right.
We just want to be able to get on the boat, go use the water, park the cars at the bottom, so you drive up, everyone hops out of the car, walks the dock, loads into the boat, someone drives the car to the bottom of the driveway, and as they're using it over the summer, they figure out what they want.
Right.
We come back again with another application.
So we're
improve
trying
it
not to make this
next
what's
year.
called a phased project.
Understood,
And
but.
the fact that you
yeah.
have zero impact on the bank, that this dock is just gonna sit on that concrete and possibly lop off that one limb, I would say that this would not necessarily, try not to make this a phased project where we need to see all the rest of this first. So.
Right.
So minimum, if any, vegetation cutting on the side.
Yeah,
Right.
so if you're looking at this picture, it would be the one limb hanging to the right, and then I don't know if Becky has it, that, and then that piece right there, and then that's it. I mean, no,
I would say that.
If you do anything else, then we'll hear about it, so.
I don't think you would need to. And
No, I
when
don't
we were
think
out
you
there,
would.
that's what we discussed was,
Right.
To be realistic, because you still have, we're concerned about shade, we're concerned
Sure.
about stabilization of the bank. And,
Yeah.
and so anyway, would you agree that,
Yep.
okay.
David would like to hear from you.
I have two basic problems. I disagree with my colleague. It is a phased project. I don't care how else you put it, it's a phased project. Because you're telling us that you want to be able to use it now and figure out what's going to be best for it. But we think that what's best for it is to do it in a single project so that we know what's going to be done to the project. My second disturbance is 3.5 acres worth of cutting. which is fairly heavily treed at the present time. That's 3.5 acres at the top of a hill that's going to be denuded. Two big problems for me. I'm going to have some difficulty getting over those, because we have steadfastly, as Stephen alluded to, we have steadfastly refused the phase project, because boys, the surprises that come up in a phase project, "Oh, but you told us we could do this," and all of a sudden, we have to do this because we allowed this. The unintended consequences are the things that sneak up and bite us. And so we try to avoid unintended consequences by knowing the whole plan up front. And you're proposing that we don't get to know the whole plan up front. And this is a really, really steep slope. I agree with you about putting in the 3 to 6. I think that's great for interrupting the velocity. But at the present time, with nothing interrupting the velocity, the whole bottom part of that hill next to the road is a swamp. It is filled with water routinely after every single rainstorm, including the one that happened this week. It's just puddles of water that collect. And what you're suggesting is you're going to do that worse, because now you've got no trees at the top of the hill that are going to help to absorb that moisture and pump it out. Instead, it's all going to come rushing down the hill. That disturbs me.
We're not going to leave a nude site. The site will be vegetated. It will have grass, and there will be plantings at some point.
Not the same as trees, and you know it.
I mean, I think the plan was for us to put in fruit trees and shrubs, and we've got a dozen fruit trees and throughout the property, shrubs in multiple locations of property, grasses. Obviously, have a yard where we could use the grass areas, but obviously replace some of the vegetation. And on the dock piece, the piece with us is I guess twofold. The first one is we didn't have an intent to do anything further other than put the dock in, because we have a large lot. So we have a boat that we'd like to put there, and that would be to use the boat and use the lake that way. So the benefit for us purchasing this house was to have a slip that we could use the lake in. If you look at that piece of property, it really isn't much that you can do down there other than walk on and use your boats and walk off and go back to your house. It's a short walk to the house. So anything across the street originally we had talked, and there was no thought of doing anything across the street. So to me, and I understand where you're coming from, is it potentially being a phase project, but for us, the intent of anything across the street, I mean, we're talking about putting our docks up by the house. So, our intent is to use that lot as a place where we can launch boats from and sit on the dock and watch the kids in the water and walk back up to the house. And we propose a pool up by the house, so we'd be able to use the pool up by the house and have this to go out, and the kids can tube and jet ski and those kind of things. So totally understand where you're coming from, but I just wanted you to understand the intent for ours wasn't to take this 3 steps. It was just use this as a boat slip.
Right, and the discussion kind of came up after our site visit, and the things we had talked about a little bit, maybe what could be allowed. We had a conversation after that, and that's kind of where that came from. But I think we could be clear and have a condition, no vegetation removal down there, and be very clear. And if it does happen, it would be a violation of that condition, and could go from there if it was a problem. So I think that we could take steps to ensure that maybe it doesn't happen, and if it does, there's a process for that too, with the dock.
I did have a rough drawing of just some of the trees, the fruit trees we put in. I mean, we have a house in Sturbridge right now, and we've got a ton of vegetation at it right now. I don't know if that's something that, but we would be bound to put in a dozen trees. I mean, throughout the property, obviously, throughout the edges of the property, and concentrate in some areas, and put some beds in the. If you look at the driveway is a circular driveway. Put a huge bed in the middle with a bunch of grasses out by the pool area. Some of the native shrubbery, those type of things, all throughout the property. Understanding that yes, we are cutting some trees down, but we want to replace some of that as well with some fruit trees, which would be good for the habitat.
Well, that's part of the plan that we don't know about.
I have trees, yeah. Right.
It's not on the plan. That's my point.
It was more for, and to be honest with you, and that's more on us, was we wanted to see it cleared out and say, okay, where would you want to put trees? It's hard right now when you go up there because you're looking at so when it's cleared, you can say, okay, we want to put you know, we want to dedicate a dozen trees to portions of this property. Where do you want to put them? You know, it's hard to, we know where the house is going, we really don't even know. We walk up there and say, okay, where's it going to be? Okay, would you put trees there? Would you not put trees there? So we are, I mean, you could put in the conditions that we would put in a dozen trees in this, you know, fruit trees or whatever type of trees you guys would like us to put in.
David, do you have any other comments?
Nope.
All right.
Public?
I'm not there yet. So how much frontage do you have on the lake down here?
78 feet.
78? Okay. So eventually you will be limited in the amount of bank you can alter. What's 10%, I believe, is that right?
10%.
Yeah. So just so you're aware of that.
Yeah, the intent
Yeah.
right now is not to alter any.
I know, that's,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying down the
Right.
road,
Appreciate
just
that.
reminding you that.
Yep.
Also, so the buffers that we're dealing with up here, for the area that, the 3.5 acres that's being clear cut, what is this?
That's the 500-foot buffer, so it's outside of 200 feet. It's only for
side
the
of hill from the
zoning.
lake, yeah.
Okay,
It's for
all right.
Which I never thought, I never thought about the 500-foot buffer. Does it stop at the top of the hill, or does it go to the other side? I thought about that maybe we should have stopped the buffer at the top, even though that ended up 500 feet.
Well, you know,
Because from the other, it's going down the wrong side
Right.
of the hill at that point. But that's,
The crest is not helping you.
I have heartache about this too, with the amount of trees that are coming out, but I think, you know, given the location, yeah, there's not much to say about that, I guess. Any comment?
Reiterate that, you know, out of the 17.5 acres, you know, about 14 of it is going to stay wooded. So that's a pretty high percentage.
Right.
I mean, obviously it's a bigger lot, so, but if you had a smaller lot and put a smaller lawn in, your percentage would be much higher.
Right.
But
Any other comments from the board?
just quickly, what was the erosion control that you were planning on?
we were doing, I believe, silt fence and wattle.
Okay.
And you said that's all
Yeah.
along the tree line, right?
Yeah, it's all on the tree line, and then you have, you know, the existing woods
Yeah.
would be remaining, so.
Well, you're just outlining the limit of work, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he shows the
Yeah.
silt fence there.
Yeah, it's basically the silt fence. I mean, there's a couple of places we didn't put it that, you know, it didn't make sense to put it, but yeah, so it's limited clearing and on all the down slopes,
Okay.
on all the toe slopes.
We all set. Any comments from the public?
We have 3 representatives from the local area.
All right.
What was the septic system going to be on?
Can you stand and use the mic for us, please?
It's sewer. It's
Yeah,
it's town sewer.
There's sewer available, so there wouldn't be a septic system.
Oh, so you'd be going out onto the trail.
Yep. And I believe the property has an easement that was granted to the DPW. I think everybody on the trail has it for, I think there's a lot of E1s in there.
There's a $23,000 leach field up there,
Right
right
there.
in your backyard, so.
Oh, okay, yeah, no,
I
we're
want to buy it.
You do have to use a microphone and introduce yourself, because the people at home love to hear your voice.
I lost.
All right. Anybody else?
Good evening, my name is Tom Lero. I'm at 8 Mount Dan Road. And just for personal clarification, the platform that is proposed is not part of this dock that's being considered?
It is, the platform is part of the dock.
Okay, so there is a dock and a platform that is part of it?
Yeah, the platform is part
Off of the dock,
it's
correct,
part of the
yeah.
dock, yes.
Just for my own personal clarification, because it seemed like on the plan, the dock was one item and the platform was another item, but that's it. The other concern that I have is, you know, as you did, has a concern about the, I guess, 3.4 acres of seeding that's going to take place. And, you know, I certainly can understand if you want to have, or I have less concern if it's, say, fields, you know, natural seeding that takes place. But if, in my estimation, if you have a lawn area that requires maybe irrigation, fertilization, to me, that might have more potential impact on the lake. I know that, you know, we as a lake association are always concerned about, you know, property owners fertilizing their properties. You know, everybody wants to have a nice green lawn, but there are also ways that there could be less harmful fertilization of land for lawns as well. Those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
Can we get some clarification about how much lawn you're planning to put in versus just having having a field with, I guess, natural grass?
Well, so the 3.5 was the total area, so that includes like the side slopes of the driveway and stuff like that, but so the primary lawn area dimensioned it, and I'm going to do a quick calc here for you.
Is-
585
so in other
by
words, is this
132?
all
Yeah, so-
proposed to be lawn,
Yeah.
grass?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So it's
Lawn and beds, lawn and flower beds and
ornamental grasses.
ornamental grasses
You
and
know, fruit trees and whatnot, so that's, yeah.
You know, it's within our, because it's in the couple of different buffer zones here. Where's the riverfront?
Well, riverfront, let me zoom out a little bit for you. So we're only looking at riverfront down here.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And this is, we're only within 500 feet here. So as you get closer, I think the 200 foot is pretty far down.
That's right along this.
About halfway down the hill.
Yeah.
I mean, it is within
Yeah.
our right to limit the size of that 3.5 acres, to say, you know, that could be problematic. I don't think it is. I think that grasses, and especially if they have like natural grasses growing in some of the areas, actually is better than in terms of runoff and so on. I mean, I think it's just going to be just as good. They're actually going to level some of that out. I would say that if it's grass and part of natural vegetation and some shrubs around the edges, that it's probably not going to be, I'm to say it would not be a problem. But, you know, if you're concerned about the 3.5 acres, we have the ability to say, we think that's too much. And what would happen if you'd have to have some basis for that to say, you know, we think that's too much within that steep a slope and so on.
just to answer Mr. Nero's question, we would obviously with being, I'm sorry, sir. Lero. We would obviously, if we're, you know, have residents on the trail, we would want to be well within the compliance of the lake and make sure we're using the proper products to not only fertilize or whatever it is that isn't going to harm the lake at all, so.
Where we live now, we're not crazy fertilizers, we saw our grass, we're pretty.
Yeah, so whatever, I mean, I would want to stay
Can you
within the regulations.
Come up and use the mic or the one at the table here. Thank you. Just introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Tony Reno, Tony's wife. Just want to say, the house that we live at now, we have probably over 40 grasses. We're Italian. I have probably 6 huge beds of flowers and trees in every area that we have. So that's not an issue of putting things around the yard. I mean, that's a given already. He probably says I have too much, but it's all around the pool. I have 35 grasses in the front, and he has to cut them down every, you know, to cut them down in March, and then they grow back up, so.
Of course you have too much.
I mean, I do, but I do, and that's
Got to
our
keep
thing.
them busy,
I
come
can
on.
relate.
I do. But that is, I mean, trees, fruit trees, we're gonna have them. You know, we finally have a yard. We live at the preserve with no yard right now. And the kids are getting bigger, and they wanna have just a little bit more of a yard, and we thought of 17, that 3 wasn't huge. You know, I get it, what you're saying as far as trees, but it's not full of trees either. They're more towards the back. And they're sparingly too. So, and I understand, believe me, but the rest is all gonna be trees and not touched.
Okay.
Promise, seriously. I know that, but my Italian's a good word.
Good job.
Any other comments from the public? Do I have a motion? Steve,
I'm just waiting to,
do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
we close the public hearing.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Okay, do I have a motion?
Have we gone, okay, I move that we accept this plan, but there's a lot of conditions that I'm not sure which comes first, the motion, or we list those conditions.
Yeah, we should list the conditions
Okay.
for you to make
I
a
will
motion.
hold my motion.
We don't have to, it wasn't seconded, so it's not a motion.
If there's nobody listening.
All right, so let's discuss the conditions.
Okay. We can start with the dock. We can add the conditions that there's no removal of vegetation down there at this time and be very specific about the bank, et cetera. With the dock install, if you felt it was necessary, we could, you know, say to let us know when they're gonna go out and put it in, and we can see what they need to maybe limb, so we can be sure that they're only limbing what we would be content with for that. We could add that in there. I think that could be a good condition for that. Can do construction.
I like the idea of that we're there when they do any cutting of vegetation,
Okay.
because that can be misconstrued by somebody else that was not sitting here, that's there with the lopping shears and the saw. So let's say that the vegetation would be removed under our,
In the presence of
yeah,
a commission representative.
yeah. I mean, you guys would be good, but somebody else come along, you say, hey, you know, we got permission to cut a little vegetation. They go, oh, there's trees in the way.
Trust me,
I mean, believe me,
I'm
I've
dealing with a miscut and.
seen it, been there, seen it. Okay,
Towns, and I know
sorry.
That does not go well, so.
Yeah.
Well, for the sake of cutting the vegetation, then why aren't you talking about the vegetation that has to be cut on the slope in order to make the drive? Because you're gonna be making it wider than it currently is.
Yeah, and we show a revised tree line on that, so we do show that there is a cut for that slope.
What I'm suggesting is that perhaps what you do is ribbon that which is going to be cut,
Oh, okay. I mean,
so then the commission could come out and look at it and say, holy smokes, or gosh, what a great job.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted the limit of clearing delineated prior to the clearing, we could do that.
I think it might be advisable so that you get a better idea, because the scope of the plan is big.
It is,
Yeah.
It's a long driveway.
Yeah, it is.
Like I said, the idea, even if, I mean, we are gonna have to cut to put it in, but the idea was to let the woods crawl back. It's not gonna be a maintained mowed area, we're just gonna let it go wild. So you're gonna seed it and then let nature take over.
And how old will I be when they grow back? Come on, Frank.
How fast the growers populated, you know, to get some poplin.
Us guys are still gonna be there, however.
So,
Understand your point. So if you want the limit of clearing delineated prior to clearing.
Well, that's up to the board. I'm just making that as a suggestion.
I don't think we object to that.
right, and we
Something
can have that delineated. We're gonna have to do the erosion control check before the start of work. We can have that, like the pre-construction meeting, we can go out and check those things before that. That would be
It's not
something
so
that I would
dense that
typically
we can't
do.
get in and work around trees if we say, hey, this is what we show on the plan, but, oh, there's a specimen, let's go around it. I mean, you know, that's not a hard and fast line that we need to hold as far as, we know we can't go beyond that, but if we see some specimen trees and we want to bump out and save them, there's definitely room to do that, so I understand your point with that.
I'm still disturbed about the problem of permitting modified sheet flow on the side of the hill, because that's exactly what you're doing. After it leaves the crushed stone, it has one heck of a long ride down that slope, which is similar to what it's got now. So you're breaking the velocity periodically.
Well, if we stop it, we'll dry up the wetland, so we can't stop it altogether, because
Right.
it is feeding into a wetland, which is feeding into a perennial stream, so our biggest concern was water quality, which I feel we addressed. And quantity, I think we aren't mitigating 100%, but we're also, there's not a stormwater bylaw, and we're not subject to the stormwater standards of the Wetlands Protection Act as a single-family house, so I think we've made a good faith effort to address stormwater.
And you talked about a plunge pool possibility.
Yeah, and we have room to, if we need to do enhancements, we
Right.
do have the room to do that.
That would be something that might be necessary, though.
It definitely might be, and I think
We
we're willing to do
can,
that.
we can add a condition that, prior to the issuance of certificate of compliance, of doing a site inspection, if there are any issues that they would address, we can word that in a certain way,
Yeah, I mean, our
that
stormwater
if
management
there's
is,
any
you know,
issues.
during construction is obviously part of the order of conditions, and we're not gonna get a certificate of compliance if you're not happy, ultimately, so, and we wanna close it out, so.
We could ask for as a condition, like a construction phasing, so that way we know kind of what's going on, if that would satisfy your concerns. Okay, tree removal is proposed at this time, and kind of extent of that, and then driveways next, and then clearing for the house, or whatnot, just so we have,
Yeah, I mean, I think on one of the subsequent pages, I did a sequence of construction on there,
Yeah.
and it's fairly standard, you know, get your erosion controls in and stuff like that, and I know your order of conditions, they'll have to be inspected before we do anything, and all
Yep.
that, so we expect that.
Does the board agree with the phasing? I think that seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, it has to be, because it's a big project.
Yeah.
I mean, the owner or the potential owner indicated that it's gonna take at least a year. So,
Yeah, it's not gonna be done in 2 months.
Right.
No.
Now, I also like, it doesn't have to be a condition, but I like the idea that if there's trees along the area that's gonna have that Matt, Jude, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we could go to a one-to-one if it means saving some trees, but the idea was we wanted it to revegetate. So if we needed to catch up grade and we wanted to throw some one-to-one here and there to save something, great. But the idea was for it to revegetate. So we'd be willing to, like I said, if there's certain specimens that are like, wow, that's beautiful. We don't have to do that.
We can put the matting around it. I mean, the jute, whatever it is.
So I understand.
We did notice that there's some chestnut oak, for example, that's on that side slope.
Okay.
And, that's not a popular one. That's not something that is frequent. But on the ledgy slopes that we have in Sturbridge, it's a frequent visitor and it can get really big.
Right, and if we can preserve it, then great. So I'm willing to definitely work with you on that.
I'm good. David, any other conditions?
No, you're not good.
My mother said I was good.
Anything else you want added to the conditions?
I don't want to engineer the plan. That's
No.
what you're asking us to
No,
do.
I'm just asking if there's any other conditions. Becky?
I think just our basic general ones we use
Yeah.
in addition.
All right. Do I have a motion? No?
I move we accept the plan.
As greatly modified.
That's great.
Do I have a second?
Might be up to the chair to second it.
All right. I will second the motion. All in favor? All right. You have your...
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I apologize again for the delay about the legal ad. I apologize to everybody in the audience. that we kept you waiting, so thank you.
All right.
We can see the vexation in your eyes, so we're good.
We are now, we're now at 6:30.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. See you soon.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sorry for the delay. We're now at 6:30. Notice of intent, DEP 300-1014. We have 234, 236. 234 to 236 Haynes Road, Petrogas, represented by Ecotech Incorporated, redevelopment of an existing gas station and restaurant site, including relocation of culverted perennial stream. This is continued from 4/5/2018.
Good evening, Arthur Allen from Ecotech Incorporated, project wetland scientist. I have the original Ecolab and the original
Thank you.
mailing for the revised butter notification, so that includes all the individual condo owners as well. As stated, Patrick McLaughlin is here with me, the project engineer tonight too. And as stated, we're proposing to redevelop the existing mobile gas station and the former Roy Rogers restaurant at the corner of Route 15, Haynes Road, and Mashpond Road. And currently there's two buildings on the site, the active gas station and canopies, and the former restaurant site, all surrounded by pavement. Pretty much the two existing lots are fully paved out. There's an existing septic system, an existing public water supply, private water supply on the site that services, and there's the lots right there. And I guess I have.
I just figured maybe we could start
Yeah, that's fine.
here and I could put the aerial.
So the
overlay
two
on
developed
too.
lots are here. Here's the mobile gas station, and here's the former restaurant. The septic system for the site is actually located up on this parcel. This is part of the project. And then this vacant parcel here is also included in the project locus. And in terms of resource areas, I guess you could put up the existing conditions plan if that's possible. So here's the existing conditions plan, shows again the lot, the northerly lot with the existing septic system right there. And then the Roy Rogers restaurant and the mobile gas station, Mashpog Road down here, Route 15, and then the ramp out to 84 is right there, just to orient everyone. Resource area wise, There is a map perennial stream actually that enters into the site via a culvert under Mashpog Road and then is culverted throughout the site, including under a corner of the restaurant building before it enters a structure out on the Mass DOT property adjacent to this site in a structure that's partially failed right there. Connects to an intermittent stream that drains out the north side of the site across this lot from a rather large wetland system out behind the properties. And there's actually a third wetland system that forms right here in this corner and drains to that culvert where the perennial stream starts and moves through the site. So again, we're proposing to redevelop the site. And we could put up a proposed conditions plan, possibly.
One more
Yeah.
might be good.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. So we're proposing to renovate the existing former restaurant building, and that will be now the new convenience store and cashier location for the gas station. The existing building for the mobile will be torn down, and Pat, feel free to jump in at any point if I misspeak, because Pat's more on the design than I am. But and then we're proposing stormwater improvements for the entire site. Those are actually still under discussion because we're also having discussions with Mass DOT regarding the tie-in of the existing stream culvert. The status of that culvert. We had a meeting with Mass DOT earlier in the week that Becky was part of, and also Jean Boubon from planning was there. And we discussed that existing stream culvert, how that's going to be tied in, and some potential additional stormwater improvements we can do to the site. And so just to back up a bit, we're here tonight just to essentially introduce the project. We're not looking to close out the project or make any significant progress tonight. We'll be requesting a continuance for possibly as much as a month at the end of the hearing tonight to discuss further how this culvert will be relocated. We know we need to get it out from under the existing building. It's in an old corrugated metal pipe. Potentially that pipe has already started to fail, causing that sinkhole problem that's down here where the culvert joins the Mass DOT drainage.
Yeah, that's where you previously said the system had failed. I thought that was interesting wording for a bloody sinkhole.
Well, yeah, it's pretty clear. It's actually probably a little bit dangerous at this point. So, so we need to work out those details. We also need to, since we filed initially, they've done some more work on what we thought were going to be minor repairs to the septic system. It turns out that septic system is going to probably need to be replaced. So it'll still be a repair system, but it'll actually be a whole new system. We're looking at abandoning the existing system and then designing a new system adjacent to that, but actually further away from the resource areas, because the existing system was built within the buffer zone. Potentially, they even filled wetlands when they built this system. It was done prior to, to most of the rules and regulations. So, it was built up and mounded, built up out of the wetland, but the wetland actually goes around two sides of it. So, if we could maybe back up one plan. Yeah, so
It's right here.
yes, the existing system's right there, so we'd be moving the system over to here, away from the wetlands that are up to the kind of southeast. So we'd be looking at abandoning the system, building the new / repair system here. So that would be a Title V compliant system. So we'll be filing with Board of Health, and they'll be reviewing those. That new system will actually also be filing. There's a well proposed on the site here. We're going to be abandoning the existing wells, which are in close to the developed area, putting a new well in to meet offset radii, and that'll be up on this adjacent lot in between the existing wetlands outside of the 25-foot buffer. So we'll need to, again, catch up on those Board of Health filings, which we'll hopefully have done prior to the continuation?
I would say so, yeah.
We'll keep the board updated on that
Okay.
as we go along anyway, in addition to those, you know, those negotiations with DOT and working out exactly how we're going to repair and improve that stream culvert. There was actually some good discussion at the DOT meeting. I believe we have a kind of a course of action moving forward that may include, you know, daylighting part of that existing stream culvert, you know, and doing a better job kind of tying it in. Because right now, this intermittent stream along the side of the site, that enters a head wall along an existing fill slope, and that contributes also to that area where the sinkhole is. So we're going to need to look in more detail at that and, you know, potentially open all that up, get the site stormwater out of the main perennial stream culvert, discharge to, you know, to another wetland, a smaller, you know, more stable system off the, you know, that has more chance for treatment and attenuation prior to entering, you know, that system where the perennial stream is. Because right now, all the site stormwater just dumps into catch basins that discharge directly into that stream culvert with little or no treatment. So we're talking about, you know, we have an enhanced treatment plan on the table right now, but that was looking at discharging, you know, right back into that stream culvert. Now we're looking at separating that stormwater out of the perennial stream culvert.
I have a question. Now that the septic's going to be moved, do you think the old location for the septic could be any infiltration there for stormwater? I don't know if that could be reused or not somehow, maybe, or
Not elevation.
Yeah, elevation-wise, we wouldn't be able
Oh,
to
we still,
get
'cause it's
the
pumping.
stormwater up there.
Yeah.
Right, but we do want to offer that as a, you know, we'd restore that area. I mean, the folks that attended the site walk saw that. I mean, one of the main issues with that existing system was that it actually it never had an earth cap put over it. So those were concrete, open bottom leaching chambers that just were never covered. So now we have the opportunity with the material that comes out of the excavation bed of the new area to, you know, lay that over the top, as well as, you know, then go back in and seed it with some native mix and restore that area. So that would be our proposed use of the existing bed location, and then, yeah, the proposed one would be just down slope of it.
like over here?
Yep.
Would you be able to access the road to do the construction for that? Just thinking about if you're going to be restoring this, I know you'd still need your pipe to come through, but I know we had that culvert that was here. I'm wondering if that could be like a restoration option too with the stream, if you were moving your septic here and you could just access for construction here. I don't know if you'd need something from.
Yeah, that drops down into a ravine, probably the same level or so of elevation change that culvert's down at, so maybe 15 feet or so. So we'd prefer to continue to use the historical kind of access road that's out there. We did talk at the time of the site walk about making sure that there's adequate protection of that existing culvert so that construction vehicles don't damage that, and then we're looking at, you know, replacing something in addition to just based on construction work. So we'll adequately address that, and just Art did a great job basically summarizing the project. The only other few things I would add, the overall redevelopment basically stays within the paved limits of what you'd see out there now. We talked about to the rear, which would be up the page. I don't know if I'm any good with this, Art, but this area here would be a small expansion of the pavement limits, but then all along the front we'd be removing pavement in this area and even a small amount in through here. So
It's a net reduction.
it's a net reduction overall of pavement area, and the limits essentially are what you would see when you walk the site today.
Yeah, but let's go back a step to the septic system that you were just talking about.
Sure.
Taking the materials that you're going to be excavating and using them as a cap for the existing septic system? That's what you just
Yeah, so there's some clean material.
I understand that.
Yeah.
My question is, why is that not further filling a wetland if in fact you said in the beginning they filled a wetland in order to put those septic system in place?
Well, I didn't say that.
I was speculating.
So we got Alan on the hook then.
Speculating because the wetland wraps around two sides of the.
Which doesn't make sense unless man intervened.
Right.
So, but isn't it not going to make it worse by adding more material to it? In other words, what you're doing is taking a peninsula that was made by us, and you're creating a larger form of that same peninsula.
They're only talking about a layer over the top so you can establish vegetation on it, because right now it's just concrete.
So talk to me about depth. You're talking a foot, an inch?
Are they done? We're probably just.
No, Pat's still trying to explain things, because there are two questions that they haven't addressed yet. That was one of them. Are you talking foot of material, or are you talking heaps and bounds of material?
Probably only talking a foot.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah, like Art said, enough to establish some.
Okay, so just a growth medium.
Yeah, sure. And actually, as I think about it a little bit more, the area that we would be proposing the new system is actually on a downward slope. So we'll meet the 4 feet of separation required at the upside, but then we'll actually be filling to bring up a level bottom. And having significantly more than 4 feet of separation to the water table on the downward side, which would be towards the cursor.
Again, moving away from the wet.
Right, so there probably wouldn't be a significant amount of excavated material that comes out of there. It would be the organic layer that gets stripped, would then be replaced. And it's probably not a one-for-one swap, so you're looking at bringing in, some amount of topsoil.
One other item that Art didn't explain, which he told us when we were on a site visit. It's not one of my questions.
Okay.
You need to explain to the public what's going to happen to the septic system that now exists for the mobile station.
Oh yeah, that's going to be decommissioned.
Yeah, so that'll be abandoned and removed in accordance with Title V. The removal actually will be necessitated because as part of our further investigation to do some additional stormwater, we're going to look to use that area back there for an above-ground basin, which is, yeah, so that area there, where you see the limits of silt fence right now, that's right along the existing tree line that's out there, the mature tree line. There's some scattered small trees in there, but for the most part, that's all a disturbed area now that has the leach field on it. So our original stormwater plan and entire proposal was to restore that buffer area. And now looking that we're going to propose some additional stormwater of key note, it would be within your buffer areas, but we've had some discussion about the benefit to the increased stormwater treatment versus the restoration of that specific area of buffer. So we're looking to do a basin there to try and accommodate and remove our on-site stormwater from the previously shown or currently shown tie-ins to the stream culvert. So there's a good amount of engineering that will continue to be taking place over the next few weeks before you guys see us again, and that includes finalizing a location of this relocated stream culvert. It may, in fact, not even be the one that's shown currently, which is a deviation from the existing culverted course. We've talked about seeing if we can run it through the back of the site and then bringing it down closer to the resource area that Art was discussing before and opening that whole thing up. Or we may in fact find that just constructability wise a similar course to where we're showing it now, where it comes down towards the entry driveway and then runs across the front, may be what the ultimate design is. We talked to Mass DOT about trying to relocate it out into the state layout, and they didn't see much benefit from their point of view to take on the maintenance of that. But it was certainly a useful discussion either way, because it's basically providing the opportunity to restore some open channel flow out closer to the state highway.
Okay, I kind of want to move this along. Was there any other comments you want to make tonight?
Just quickly, I don't know if you saw that the DEP file number did come
At
through this
355, yes.
afternoon. And there's a number of comments on there. We'll address those in
Great.
writing as part of the revisions.
Do we have those?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, I printed them for you.
Okay.
Right, they just came in. That was gonna be one of my comments, was to go over those and address those. And those are kind of things that we've been saying, so.
Sure. We're aware of it.
Yeah, so since we first kind of saw this project come in through planning and ZBA, it's great to see and have this discussion about these changes and looking at addressing some of these things that we've been bringing up. Some of the big concerns that but for the general public, that we've been concerned with keeping that perennial stream in that culvert. So looking at meeting the stream crossing standards, which you guys are doing, and kind of going through that process for us. So kind of starting at the best scenario, can we daylight it? If not, why? And kind of give us that information, and then go from there. Can we do some type of three-sided box culvert, or going down and seeing what can be possible? And we've had some pretty good discussions about that, and it sounds like you're on the right track to working towards that. For the stormwater management, we've had the concerns about directing it into the perennial stream, so looking at more on-site infiltration is great, and it sounds like you're heading in that direction, so I'm really glad to see that. And making sure all those catch basins get pre-treated first too. I think there was a couple on the original plan. In regards to the well, you're going to go through the process with Board of Health and DEP. I guess a couple questions is thinking about how much withdrawal. Maybe we would want to look at that a little bit. What's the withdrawal? Could it affect the surrounding wetlands? That would just be my kind of question for that. So I think that covers. Those are the major concerns, I guess, which you've been well aware of, so.
Steve, do you have any questions?
I would say that a major part of that planning would be the moving of perennial stream. That's going to jump right out at DEP.
It has.
And it sounds like you're, I used to work for them, and I know exactly what would be happening. And also, it sounds like you're moving away from running any pipes into that, which is going to save you a big issue with NPDS permits too.
Correct. Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, more to come.
Yep.
That's exactly
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
And again, you'll have ample opportunity to review the revisions as they come in and comment further. So.
Yeah, and actually, it looked like DEP wanted to see whatever the next round of changes were.
That's right.
So they'll be in the loop because they'll be not wholesale changes, but significant enough.
And they were good enough to issue a file number, so we can make progress.
So you can
Yeah.
move forward.
Yeah. David, what's your question?
Do you have any idea what the water table is?
It does vary. So out at the leach field area is about 36 inches. So to put that in perspective, those are 18-inch high concrete leaching chambers now. So the actual separation from the bottom of those is only 18 inches, which is why it's not suitable for reuse. So
In the new area?
In the new area, it's still 36 inches at the high end. So there'd be, that's why we're going to push it down the slope a little bit. It'll be in a fill condition. So it'll be leveling out an area that's on a slope.
So is it going to be a raised system?
It'll be slightly raised over what the existing grades are, but it'll actually be almost table topping out from the top of those. Because there's quite a bit of slope that drops off the side of that mounted system now. Yeah, so it'll achieve the 4 feet of separation that it needs, and then groundwater throughout other portions of the site where we've looked at it for stormwater purposes. On the left-hand side, or in the rear right now, we have a proposed infiltration basin that meets the adequate separation. I don't remember, that was maybe 72 inches deep or something like that. And then we did do another one closer to that adjoining lot line there. So we're looking to do another infiltration BMP there. The area that we spoke of before where the mobile leach field is doesn't really lend itself towards an infiltration BMP. That could be mounted because of that existing system, or
Water
who
table
knows,
would be
but-
closer to the surface, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yep. So being conservative, we'll probably do either some type of wet basin or something with an impermeable liner that separates the the treatment BMP from the groundwater and kind of manage it that way. So that's the stuff we're looking at there. But it does vary because there's so much historical fill out here that although it's sandy fill, the existing ground surface is quite lower in a lot of spots, and
And
so
sandy fill so that you can have a sinkhole.
also true.
Anything else, David? No. Okay. I do have one question about the distance from the road surface down to where that stream enters the culvert that goes underneath. What is it, Breakneck Road?
Matchbog.
Or Matchbog Road. Yeah, do you, how far, I know that that stream, as it's piped currently, where the sinkhole is significantly underground, 17 feet, I think, or whatever. Or 20
Yeah,
feet.
it's around
Yeah.
17. There's some spots where it's
So
20.
I understand, the concerns about trying to daylight something that's that deep, but I'm just curious as to how, what the elevation of the pipe is at this end, where the stream enters the pipe versus.
Yeah, I don't have actually, if you could maybe bump back one sheet, one more.
And
Yep.
to zoom in?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if this thing zooms, that'd be awesome. Oh, we're rocking and rolling. So the invert actually is just off, that leader shows it, but my viewport's cut off there. But I want to say it's somewhere around 88, and the elevation of that roadway is actually lower than our site because that area drops off. So at Mashapog, it's probably a reasonable, I would say 6 to 8 feet, and then it comes under, and it never daylights again. But down in that tip of that resource area there, there's actually a catch basin grate, which is down in a ditch line, which is below both Mashapog and our site grade. So at that elevation, it's only, what's that rim read? It's only like maybe 8 feet deep within the structure, but then as it comes back into the site, it rapidly gets deeper.
From a daylighting standpoint, I'm just wondering if we do run it across the back of the property, if it could be fairly shallow there, and then have, much more steeper drop off at the other end of the property. That way we could sort of keep it daylighted back here without having it be too, having it be too deep.
Yeah, it
for
would
having a massive structure.
It would probably be still 15 to 20 feet deep through there, especially where you get over to the left edge of
Through
where
here?
we're zoomed in now. Yeah, it would be 15 feet almost immediately as we daylighted it, because the rim of that existing catch basin structure is probably 8 feet below the elevation of the paved limits of the site, and then the invert of the pipe is lower than that.
Yeah, that's
so.
we're talking a massive
and
structure.
actually, I haven't looked at it in too much detail since we were at the DOT meeting, but just the amount of earthwork that will take place in the front corner of the site when we do daylight that the perennial stream as well as the intermittent stream. There's quite a bit of excavation that would take place to restore open channel flow that's 15 to 20 feet deep. You're talking side slopes that are wide. So I mean, DOT will be looking to accommodate some more guardrail to protect the motorists from along the main roadway there, and then we'd have some on-site retaining walls and head walls and guardrail that beyond our pavement limits.
Okay. I think overall I see this as a major improvement. Like you're talking about treating stormwater that currently is not treated, so I see that as a major benefit. Do we have any comments from the public? If you could just introduce yourself and use the mic, please. Thank you.
Mark Murphy from 30 Bentwood Drive, which is on a butter, I understand. I did walk the property with my wife over the weekend, and you talk about changing the location of the septic system, which is very, very close to the condo project property line. And I'm wondering if it could be considered to have some kind of a tree line behind it. I know there's a contemplation of a drive-through, which I think is kind of an expanded use for what they have now down at Roy Rogers, or when they used to be in operation. So I'm wondering if there would be consideration for some trees between the condo project and where you're going to be doing all the work on the septic, Also, that access road, which goes back to where you're going to be working on the old septic system and the new one, I'm hoping that at the conclusion of the project that it won't be an area that through all the use of that existing access road that now it becomes like a walking path for people who are parking alongside the drive-through, walk over towards the area that is what I guess would be an abandoned septic system. Then they'd be right on our property line, maybe walking dogs, that kind of thing. So I'm hoping that there'd be some kind of a fencing, signage, but more importantly, trees between the project and where they're working on the new septic. Right now, there's really big, I think they're white pine, rows of them along the property line, but that doesn't help us at all with sightline, you know, I mean, and then I guess the last thing I would be concerned about is, you know, who do we deal with? What kind of notice, who do we deal with in the event that there is any kind of a failure of the system? Because years ago, there was a failure of that system, and in the project, in the condo project, you could smell the failed system. So that's a problem, you know, that it was a problem. So
Board of Health.
Yeah, the Board of Health would be responsible for making sure that the system is
That's
intact.
our Board of Health, your
Right.
Board of Health.
Yeah.
Right. As well as they would have their, whatever their entity is that owns that septic system is
Right.
liable for repairs and that type of thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have any comments about about the trees potentially, or
Yeah,
any?
I mean, we can look at adding some lower growth type buffer that can accommodate the visual effect of it. And then, yeah, I mean, any complaints to the Board of Health would always be facilitated back to the current property owner. The benefit here is that Petrogas is looking to, you know, to be a benefit to the community and provide a service here that is somewhat outdated currently. So, you know, their operations team and the folks that would be operating here now would be, yeah, a lot better suited to handle any type of abutter complaints.
I think the other concern was about the access road to the.
Oh, yeah.
So is there a way that could be, say, have a gate there or something?
I think we can look at that, but I mean, there's a trash enclosure back there now. There's a good stretch of guardrail, and there's going to be potentially an additional stormwater BMP back there, along with other utilities, a transformer pad. So yeah, I mean, there's going to be more obstacles than it's worth to probably try and walk your dog back there, but the infiltration BMP might have a fence around it anyways that we could extend over to the, make a gated access for maintenance of the leach fields.
I know one of the plans says that the guardrail is going to be maintained, the existing guardrail that's along that drive-through window. Is it a new guardrail, or is it leave that guardrail the way it is?
Well, it was leave that guardrail, I believe, but we're looking at doing a significant more amount of work over there. So the likelihood that stays after there's that much more excavation. But if at all we can leave it, that was the plan.
No, it'll have to be replaced.
Yeah, it'll be replaced. Yeah.
All right. Well, those are my concerns.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
We have some other.
Yes, my name is Fernando Santos, 14 Mashpog Road. I'm the nearest abutter to the new well they're going to install. So my concern is during the summer months, during heavy pumping and when the water table's at the lowest, that it might cause a corner depression and possibly lower the water table below my pump intake in my residential well. And right now it's at, the existing well is about 900 feet and it never impacted my well, you know, ever in the last 10 years I've lived there. But at the installation location it's about 450 feet, so it's, you know, cut in half the distance. And I called Mass DEP and I spoke to Susan Connors to address my concern, and she said that, you know, I have a good point to be concerned that she's going to talk to Petrogas about performing a pump test in coordination with myself, and then measuring the water level in my well while they're performing the pump test, because that's the only way you're gonna find out if it has any impact. And, you know, it's unfortunate that you can only do this after the well's installed. Hopefully there's an issue, but if there's an issue, I don't know what their plan B would be. But I do support this project. You know, it's an eyesore right now. I just want to make sure that, you know, there are no issues, you know, in the summer months during, you know, low water table. And yes, soon conversation will have someone get in touch with me regarding putting in maybe a transducer, monitoring the water level, and during that pumping test, I'll, you know, try my hardest to not allow my family to, you know, take frequent showers or irrigate or go to the bathroom, just so it doesn't, you know, impact the data.
Right.
So I just wanted to let that be known, and that they can coordinate with me, and, you know, during the pumping test after the well is installed. So that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Just briefly address that. We will be permitting through the local Board of Health, the well, and through DEP. But in more particularly, that's proposed to be a deep well, a bedrock well. Mm-hmm. So it's not proposed to impact that surface aquifer that you develop that cone of influence for the surface water. So it's going to be drawn from that deep bedrock aquifer, which is the same aquifer that the existing drilled well is in. So it really shouldn't affect, you know, anything on the surface. But again, DEP will be reviewing that as well as the Board of Health.
My well's at 200 feet below ground surface, so it's really also.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it probably all those wells are in the same bedrock aquifer. But yeah, it really, we don't anticipate any surface effects, and if the existing well doesn't influence, I doubt this one will, because it's going to be in the same bedrock aquifer.
Very good, thank you. Anybody else? So, okay.
Can't read it any better here than I could over there.
Can you introduce yourself first? Yeah, thank you.
My name is Michael Caplat, live at 38 Bentwood Drive. I'm also chairman of the Board of Trustees at the condo trust.
Okay.
Just a couple of comments. There was a comment made that the existing pavement on the, I'll call it, I guess that's the southeast side of the building, the back of the Roy Rogers building, is going to be extended. Is it going to be extended 1 foot, 5 feet, 10 feet? How much?
Pat?
The existing pavement is pretty close to the back of the building right now.
Yeah, it's up to the back of the building. It'd be extending maybe 5 feet or so. If we can go to the site plan, which should be 1 sheet back. Yeah. Yep. There you go. Well, no, one more. But that's, yeah. I'll get a. Even again, one more. That maybe we went a long way to start.
Yeah, because that's.
Never could find the right one when you want it, can you?
Oh, now we went too far. This will give us good perspective, though, because I'll have dimensioning on it. Right. So, yeah, it's expanded basically 16 feet because, yeah, so but you're gaining, the reason that it's expanded is because we're actually adding back a little bit of landscape buffer along that edge of the building and bumping it out to the new curb line, which would start the paved drive-through queue. So it bumps out a net of 16 feet.
This is the existing line right here?
Yeah,
right?
basically right underneath that new paint line, as you can see the existing. Yep.
Yep.
So that's going to go out 16 more feet to the, that's the southeast, basically, heading in that direction. What would look to be the top of the diagram here.
Yep, but it doesn't increase to the left of the page, which I guess is to the north.
East, I guess, I don't know. East, northeast?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but Yeah, towards the leach fields, we're maintaining the same limits of pavement.
Okay. Okay. There, as was commented before, there was a drive-through, but it was only on the right side of the building here. You pulled up there, got your food, and left, all from the same window. The driveway will obviously put some lights and traffic, facing the condo project, which is really not your concern, but it is a concern with the additional pavement and how that affects the groundwater situation there. Secondly, I can tell, I've lived there for 32 years. I can tell you that, yes, we have had a problem with smell from these failing system. It's failing, there's no question. It's failed, period, not failing. And there's been an occasionally ground breakout. We did complain at times to the Board of Health, and they did try to help us, but within a short period of time, we were back to the same problems that they had, which I think ultimately led to where we are today, a new project coming in, because the owners of that project wouldn't, couldn't, shouldn't want to deal with what was going to be not a repair of a septic system, was obviously going to be a whole new system, which is what it really truly needs. Beyond that, I really have no comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I understand we have a request for continuation.
1 month, did you say? Yeah.
1 month.
Okay.
Please.
Any issue with okay? All in favor? Okay.
Thank you. Becky, do you know that date?
Not
It would be the
offhand.
third week, it would be the third week in May, the third Thursday.
I think it's May 17th. It should be May 17th. I'll send you guys an email tomorrow. We don't have anything on that yet, so you would be probably 6:15.
Great.
May 17th.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we are at 6:45. Notice of intent, DEP 300-1009, 186 Lake Road. Mark Smith and Barbara Veal Smith, represented by EBT Environmental Consultants, constructing a screened-in porch over an existing deck within the buffer zone. This is continued from April 5th.
At 6:45 conservation time.
That's correct.
Good, how you doing? Good.
Again, Michael.
Thank you, Conservation Commission.
Say again?
1014.
Glenn-
300-1014.
thought she was talking. Glenn Kowalski from EBT Environmental Consultants and Mr. Mike Beaudry, the builder.
Hi. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi. Good. Sorry for the wait.
Understandable.
Busy people. Thank you, Conservation, from your last meeting a couple of weeks ago. Questions about the ramp going into the lake, and Becky, I believe, pulled up photos that showed that it was there in 2006 when they did geothermal at the property. There was questions about keystone in the water at this location, questions about infiltration for the new proposed roof and screened-in porch for this existing deck, and where the downspouts and what the black pipe is that's over here. And some questions about infiltration of this structure also. Mr. Barnacle had brought up the potential for a rain garden. And so here's the incorporation of these projects. And also there was some discussion over here on it might be just, there it is, the field drain.
Field drain.
And whether or not we could do more infiltration at that location. So I'll start from this location, I'll go around like this. At this location, we put our head down inside of it. Brian Easold and I, a couple Sundays ago, went down, took the steel grate off, put my head down here with my Ryobi light, and found that it is an existing honeycomb large leach pit. So the gentleman I heard that owned this before my clients was, if I quote, environmental or sensitive. Maybe that's why he went geothermal. Maybe that's why he got rid of all the grass. Maybe he watched some of your meetings in the past and
No, he's
thought,
come before several times.
so he must have heard the things that you were looking for. Again, the Lenny Jalbert did the plan back in '95 when it was a tear down and build, and the bylaw came in 2002, I believe. So some of this material obviously came in before your bylaw, but he did have he's got a substantial leach pit in here. It's honeycomb. if you don't mind if I just give you just one shot down inside while Brian held the flashlight, I shot the picture. And just to give you a precast stone. There is water about 3.5 feet down in that to 4 feet. We do propose in that location to use a pump truck, take out it's never been clean. We would take out the leaves, suck it out, take out a layer of stone in it, and refresh the stone so that we're back to its leaching capacity that it had before. The side walls seem to be fine as far as the precast concrete and the stone that's evident. It doesn't appear to be clogged, functioning. So that's one thing we're proposing to do. That discharge actually comes out, and it discharges here. If you saw that black pipe on the side of the driveway, that's its point. So again, coming back around, there was some question about the existing leaders coming off the roof drains. It comes down, goes under these steps, and all is the black pipe, the same pipe that discharges on the wall. It goes directly underneath here and comes out on the wall. What we propose to do there is put a Coltech unit in. There's a detail on the plan, and infiltrate the existing roof runoff that's coming out of that location, and then tie back into the same pipe as an overflow and have that come out the side of the wall. I'll move on. There was actually 1/5 point, and that's how the existing roof ties in, and that's why Mr. Beaudre's here. I'll leave that for last if you don't mind. We, on the proposed new roof, Mr. Barnacle did bring up, again, potential. I mean, we talked about leaching, and Mr. Barnacle brought up the potential for a rain garden. We, down below, show a rain garden, all detailed plant species. I happened to be over the weekend at Rachel Carson Wildlife Reserve Federal up in Wells, and picked up some plants that they utilized in this and the whole detail on that. And that was a herbaceous rain garden that they built up there. And I actually was at another rain garden in Kennebunkport that was woody. And I could, in either one, I would, my clients will accept. So we can either go with winterberry and northern bayberry.
They had bayberry mostly.
Bayberry with a nice understory of reindeer moss and some dogwood in there, along with the northern arrowwood. Of course, it would be trimmed and kept down, but this would be 6 inches to 10 inches approximately depth. It's all described. And it would allow for infiltration. We would run the roof leader into this, allow for infiltration. And I know it's in between those tiers, but the client is willing to give up, that use that he has presently of that area to get infiltration before it dumps in.
What would you do for the base, Glenn?
The base is called out in the detail, and it does have this is a standard, it's 2 to 3 inch mulch. There's undisturbed native subgrade in there that's called for. We would make sure that it's the same hydrologic soil group A that surrounds this site.
That's my question.
Right.
Because if it's not the same hydrological base material, you're going to have a problem with infiltration.
Right. And we will ensure to inspect that subgrade and ensure that it is the same type of material. And if we have to remove material in that, if it has to be by hand, we will remove it till we get to that coarse grade. That and also talks about overseeing it, that there'd be somebody's on site. It did mention me, but whoever the wetland consultant would be overseeing the creation of this, the planting of it, the species also. So we had that for infiltration. Then there was I looked at, again, I went back there after the meeting, and the original guy, this guy or somebody before him, had put in cobbles. I don't know if it's hard for you to see, but there was some cobbles right at the road. I took pictures of them. There's a few cobbles in here. So somebody was attempting to stabilize that years ago. They're embedded, and there's only about 7 or 8, but they're clearly
do you want me to pull the picture up, or?
Did you take a picture right of it? I think I sent you the picture.
Yeah, no, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, that's the rain.
That's from today.
And, well, maybe I didn't save that one picture, sorry. It's in my email, because those are
Well-
today's pictures, so.
I think it's the
Yeah.
shoreline
Yeah.
stabilization
I
that
saw
I
it.
was working to get at, to ensure that wave action didn't pick up. I looked at this, there's not significant water running down here. I saw no erosion up above, if you're seeing here, of the material coming down and getting there, but wave action was taking whatever was sitting here and was bringing some of it into the water. Wasn't a lot. I told Rebecca, Mr. Gendro, that anything that's in the water, when the lake is drawn down, we would take any of our pea stone out of the water. But what I had proposed to put in here, and if you look at it, we did something like this in Hopkinton for EMC's Jack Egan's site. But we utilized, and Rebecca didn't know how the board would take this, so I'll just mention it, that we were looking at these 2 to 3 foot diameter, 4-inch thick, at grade rocks to stabilize just where the wave action is, and that would hold any rock just above it. Whether or not they would be in the water, I thought that also they could end right at the high water line, so whatever's below that, that's that natural gravels that are in here. We wouldn't put it in the water then. But I had originally proposed 2 feet in and 2 feet above to prevent, and they would be at grade, and it's an existing altered area. There were some stones there before. These would be at grade, and it would prevent rocks from being taken by wave action and back into the water. If the commission didn't like the idea of the rocks being in the water, these flat stones, and I actually have the stones. We took apart a Colonial Foundation, and I have them at my house, so I showed them to Brian Easold, and we can work them into the project. If the commission thought, but it would just be at that interface of the water and to prevent. But again, my point is, I don't see this stuff coming down. It's really happening right now.
You're saying that you can do it because it's previously disturbed?
There are rocks there now. It was pea stone. It has been in this form for a number of...
Man-placed or natural placed?
No, man-placed. These
Man-placed.
little rocks in here, these cobbles, they're only about like that size, but they're level, and it clearly were placed.
Okay.
Subgrade.
I remember seeing them
There's
actually
a
when I
few,
was outside. I
I'm
looked at
not
that.
saying they're all in place where they originally, but you could see where he was working to make sure that that wave action wasn't keeping a hit there.
Right.
I think a more substantial rock, even if it's only 3 to 4 across, just at the water line, would just, pea stone stays above. I don't have it coming down with weight, with a volume velocity of water flowing through, and I didn't see any real action. The one thing, sure, we could have ran out there. We just had 2.4 inches over the weekend. It would have been something to look at, because I live on the French River and that thing's crashing, crashing. So I guess that's a point to look. But what he did do with this drain, he tilted the driveway. For this drain, this driveway at the access way is tilted so that the water comes off. So I think the guy was thinking to make sure that we didn't have a constant grade running all the way down to the water. He got it into that drain. We're going to clean the drain up. Going to clean up along the shore. And if I could let Mr. Beaudre talk about the roof and just how we're going to tie that in. But there was some question by the board on how we're tying the existing roof above this deck into the new roof. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Beaudre.
Oh, sure.
If you don't mind.
No problem.
Yep, nope, that's great.
You want to know how I'm going to tie that into?
Yes, Michael.
Well, basically, I mean, the existing upper deck is cantilevered 2x10s, floor joist basically, and we're basically going to double up that rim joist, and the substructure underneath is sufficient enough to support the 2 stories.
So that's the
You're talking
upper
about
deck.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
We're going to tie into that. We're going to tie into that for the 2nd story roof, so that we can screen in the lower 2 sections, and then the railing will stay intact as you see it now. And we're going to put in a rubber roof on that on that section of the roof where we're putting in, and we were going to put gutters around there and tie into because there's downspouts on the lower levels, and we were going to tie into the lower level gutter system that is going to be taking care of the water retention that we just discussed.
So is that ultimately going into the Caltech?
We will be directing this new roof into this new roof will be directed to rain
The rain
garden.
garden, yeah.
We
to
will
the
have
rain
to
garden.
form that into the rain garden that you
Okay.
discussed. And you might say that, if you don't mind if I ask, that you had discussed this with your building inspector and those other.
Nelson came out when I first started looking at this project. And, you know, and I explained to him what we were talking about doing and everything. And we didn't get into particulars as far as structural sizes or that type of stuff, but his preliminary thought was fine with what we were talking about doing. So, so he doesn't have an issue with it, but as of this point, I haven't submitted any building permits, so I haven't submitted any drawings to him as far as structurals go. But the initial concept of what we were planning to do, he didn't have any problems with what we were planning to do.
Any other comments you want to make?
No, thank you. I believe we covered which were the issues, at least the main issues. Did I miss anything, Rebecca, maybe?
I don't think so. I think, right, you went over a lot of things that we discussed at our last meeting, so wanting to know about, a little bit more about the porch and the roof, where that water, that runoff would go from the roof, which you've added the rain garden, which it's a great inclusion. I think it also adds vegetation by the shore. Also added the winterberry on the side over here.
That was it.
So some more planting over here. The Coltec is a great inclusion on the plan. I just had a question. I didn't know because it had the drain coming out for overflow. So did the engineer think that there could be a chance of a lot of overflow with that system from the roof? I just didn't know.
Most of these Coltecs do have an emergency overflow, because if we had the 2.5 inches or something all going in, so I asked him to ensure that at the elevation he's at, that we could re-tie into that, the overflow that's presently out there that goes out the wall, which I thought would make sense. So during the largest storm events, which we don't see an erosion directly below that, I don't think there was any erosion where that black pipe came out. This way, our largest storm event, our normal storm events, 1 inch can go in the ground. Bigger, we start seeing that it could, if it was built up. And again, in that Coltec unit, we're going to ensure that we do have the native material underneath it all, so that we can get the maximum of infiltration both in the field drain, the Coltec, and that rain garden. And that was I looked at for all the mitigation that as much as I could come up with, and I'm sorry I did miss the bushes. Rebecca suggested that we add some, that's for a mask crop, a winter. It is, the reason I picked that one, winter birds, songbirds are using those berries in the winter, and that becomes one of their sources of food. So we'll let them grow. They're aesthetically pleasing for the owner, but they serve a purpose for the birds.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Glenn. Anything else, Becky?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you did a good job addressing the concerns and thinking about it in the sense of, going back, we talked about it a lot last time, that the deck was pre-approved and permitted prior to our bylaw and the regulations with the 50-foot, no new build, no new structures. I think that they've done a good job addressing those, and I went back and kind of looked at the regs, and we talked about it for another project before about, allowing new structures is that type of mitigation to allow the waiver for, the 50-foot, no new structures build. So it looks at kind of like a 2-to-1 mitigation, and if it's in a disturbed area, which we are, and I think they kind of meet that 2-to-1 in a sense by adding the rain garden, improving the infiltration, the plantings, cleaning up the drain in the boat ramp area. And we had some discussion about the stone there, and I didn't know how you'd feel about that plan, so that's something you guys can think about. I don't think it's a big concern, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to say it was okay and not know. So I think that they've done a really good job to address those concerns. So, one question, you mentioned the screen underneath the deck. Are you guys screening in underneath the deck, or is that off the table for now?
No, we're screening in underneath the deck. We're doing 2 floors.
Okay, and there's no soil disturbance associated with that, right? There's just,
There's none.
okay.
Conform to the lay of the land at this point.
Okay.
And I just want to say that I wasn't aware of that, because
Okay.
you brought the question up, and I didn't know of it, and thank you for bringing it back. It was not something that Mr. Smith had really brought up to probably because it wasn't actually framing up with a new roof.
Yeah.
It was underneath something, but there it is.
Thank you. Becky, anything else?
That's it.
Steve?
Well, I missed the meeting, but I watched it on television, and they really gave you a long list of things to try to do better, and I was holding my breath tonight. But I think you've really improved on a system that was not as good as what you're proposing, and I think there's it does not appear to be a change in impervious surface, and the treatment of the runoff of the new proposed roof seems adequate to me. And as squirrely as this project is, given what we've all inherited, I'd say that you've done a good job of making this thing doable, and I would support this thing.
Steve, do you have any comments on the use of the large stones here?
Yeah, I mean, that's a natural stone along the bank is what we like to see, and I'm all for more cobble or even larger, something natural. You're not coming in and proposing a wall made out of brick, so I'm very happy with some sort of a natural way to abate that wave action. Looks good to me. Thanks for reminding me.
Mm-hmm. David?
I have basically a non-conservation commission question, but it revolves around Conservation Commission. Do you think that the owner is going to be picking up a lot of that gravel and doing something other with the soils? Glenn?
We're incorporating that into our project. The gravel on the water here,
yeah,
we're actually, you can put it in the order of conditions, that, and when you come for the certificate, you will see, we are taking out whatever. I saw a lot of natural small stones there with some larger stones. It is kind of distinct, that pea stone. I think it's a half-inch possibly, quarter to half. Well, we can, it didn't move much. There's not a lot of along the shore current right there that I observed, because I would have, sometimes you can see that a sand, well, put it this way, if there's along the shore current, it's not strong enough to move that size pea stone.
Okay.
And so, in sand, it might have moved down the coast and you could have seen it. I'm not seeing much movement, and I look for it. So we're going to go into that area, and with that distinct looking smaller rock, we will go in and get it out of there. So that's when I say we're going to get it out. I even told Brian, it's going to be one of the projects when the water's down. I think I said to Rebecca, we'll hand pick out every piece of it.
You must have been happy about that.
Well, it's not. Luckily, it's only a small area. We're only it's the size of this table or something.
Somebody with 12-year-old kids.
Right.
Didn't work for my kids when they were 12.
Water's down here. We'll take it out,
baby.
Right. You have a concern with it? I'm working to satisfy these concerns that you have.
I don't have a concern with it. I was curious.
No, but take it out.
To answer Stephen's question, which he hasn't asked yet, because I can mentally put it in the category of previously disturbed, I would not consider that as filling of an existing resource. So as a break to the wave action, I think it's perfectly acceptable.
And I know I sometimes should not add more, but we will have these stones at the existing grade. So if those little cobbles that he has come out, we will not be filling floodplain or land underwater body. They'll be at grade, and we will shoot that grade and ensure that these, because we don't want to rump. Well, for the client we don't want to bump, but for the commission we don't want fill.
Well, we do have that note in the Wetland Protection Act that indicates previously disturbed area. Right. We have some amount of jurisdictional capabilities.
Thank you.
So
and we want to make sure that the wildlife wildlife doesn't have any issue migrating through that.
No.
So
they have passability.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Are you all
I'm
set?
done.
You may have noticed the last meeting that I had some major concerns with this project.
Right.
So Glenn, I really appreciate what you've done. I feel completely different about this now after seeing the work that you came back. I especially appreciate that rain garden. I wish that more people would do something like that, because that truly is an improvement. I think it gives us our, the replacement, because we're so close to the water. That's a major concern to us, and I was not happy with this, but I'm much more happy. I do have one question about the maintenance of these stormwater control system. So the field drain, you said has never been cleaned in the past, and
There's no evidence that it has. I mean, we took the cover off. There was dirt around the edge. I mean, he's only been there, I think, a year and a half or so. I know he did it, but I also thought of that maintenance issue. But I didn't put it in all our paperwork. But if we need to come up with a maintenance that the commission says, okay, we want you to at least look at it every couple, whatever it might be, on a periodic, we can inspect it, and we can. The client is willing to take on we can identify the depth of the organic in the bottom, and we will take a condition that we clean it out, whatever periodic.
Right, we could do a little research on how often they should be maintained. I actually just wrote that down as maybe a condition, but maybe you could find out that information, like what is it?
I think the condition should say that the owner is responsible for maintaining that in a functioning condition, and not put some arbitrary number on it, like 1, 3, or 5 years, because that doesn't make sense. 1 year, it might fill up in a matter of 3 months, and then it might go for 3 years without ever filling.
But there might be a general standard where they say yearly or something.
yeah, I think it should be inspected. We should say it's inspected, and if it needs to be cleaned out, then.
And we could report back to you by an email that we've done that, if you choose. I mean, I even went to that point.
Okay.
We're not going to give you more business, Glenn.
Oh, no, not me. I heard the owner can go in the hole. I'm not looking for me to go. I got enough stuff to do.
One other question.
If he asked me to, but I'm not looking to.
For the record, I'm in favor of
the
rocks, the large rocks. I think that's appropriate, and that makes sense. One other question, the Cultec system, any maintenance required for that?
We're going to have on the leader coming down, we'll ensure that the leaf system, any leaves can't go clog that. So there will be and we'll take a photo of it, a leaf guard. They do become clogged, and he'll have to make sure the maintenance, but we don't want leaves going into the unit.
No, but the leaf clog is visible from the surface. You don't have to go
Yes, that's what I
digging to
mean.
find
So that way we don't have this issue down inside the Cultec.
Right.
I added a condition on that for the 47 Seneca Lane that Glenn worked on about the property owner being responsible for the maintenance of that and gutters, et cetera, leading to it.
Perfect.
So it's in there. Like we could add that in here too.
Okay, good. Sounds good. Okay, that's it.
I move we close the public hearing.
Hang on. Any comments from the public? Okay. Sorry that you're waiting here.
I make a motion that we close the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Any discussion?
No, sir.
Not now that we've already
Yeah.
closed it.
Okay, do I have another motion?
Yes. We'll move that we approve of the plan as amended for notice of intent. Okay, 300, what is it?
It's
1009.
1009. It's the last one.
1009, sorry. Okay, at 186 186 Lake Road.
Do I have a
I'll
second?
second that.
All in favor?
Thank you,
Gotcha
board,
plan.
and thank you, Rebecca. Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much for your time.
Hey, Glenn, thank you for.
Michael, what's the timing on this?
Need it this spring, right?
Well, it depends on who you ask. We'd like me there as soon as we get the letter of commitment from you guys.
Rachel, check it out if you're up there, that Rachel Carson wildlife.
It is really good.
Nice. Yeah.
It's a great walk.
Yes. Well, in 3 inches of
jotted
rain,
down
sideways rain the other day. I mean
Totally.
sideways rain.
You should have been up there on Saturday when it was so beautiful.
We got there on Sunday, and it was this much snow on the ground, it melted during the day, and then it was Monday and Tuesday. Thank you again.
Thanks.
You're up. Last but not least. Bye. Have a good one.
Wake up.
Sorry for the wait over there. You want? You want to come up, please? Yeah. Can you
There you go, Rebecca.
introduce yourself?
Trip them on their way out. Don't let them
John
go.
Schneider, 3 Durant Circle.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's why I could find it.
So you had fun watching everything.
Yeah, sorry,
You
a
learned
particularly
a lot.
long meeting.
Good.
All right, so this is a pretty small project down at the DPW Fields. This is the softball field. Stephen, you weren't with us. We did go down there.
Right.
And looked at it a little bit. They're proposing to have a shed behind home plate and batting cages right over here. Behind, those are the bleachers. Those are just for the team seats there.
Yeah, it looks like the shed's here.
Yep, the shed will be proposed there
The
and
batting
batting
cage.
cages.
Yeah.
And shed's pretty simple. It's going to be on blocks,
On
correct?
blocks. Yeah, I'll
Yep.
probably have to level the blocks, but other than that, I'll just not disturb any soil and just sit on the blocks.
Do you want to tell them about the batting cage a little bit? I gave you guys a little bit of information
Yeah, I
about.
think I do the dimensions on there.
Not the dimensions, it's what you
Yeah,
have to put
you know
it
what?
on.
I can
Yeah.
pull this
Oh.
up, but we saw the ones that were out there
So-
too.
Yeah, we looked at what you had.
The frame, the frame
65
would be
by
about
24.
either 6 or 8 posts, depending on how many type channels there are. Those posts we'd like to put into the ground. I think I sent the instructions for installation about, yeah, I think they have sleeves that go into the ground. They're calling out for 3 feet down.
So it's a sleeve, you're not actually putting concrete in there?
Well, I think the sleeve would go into some
It's
concrete.
embedded in concrete, yeah.
Okay.
Right. And then the posts that go into the sleeves could be removed, you know,
Right.
annually so that the cage doesn't degrade or for storage. We'd also like to put some stone dust underneath it to make it easier to maintain. Also, would probably help level the surface and keep make it nice for the kids playing.
Yeah, it was a small amount of excavation. I know you gave it to me in one of my many emails here, but
Yeah,
4 to 6 inches. And they would take it immediately off-site, so it wouldn't be stockpiled.
I've loaded it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, 4 to 6 inches, so. So, I helped him a little bit with this. This is the plan for the DPW Fields project that's approved down there. So this shows the buffer zones on here. So, green is our wetland line. We got a 25, 50 foot. So, I mean, the shed and this are within 50 feet. This just a little bit, but they're kind of temporary in nature, I would say.
Right.
And they're, you know, it's all existing lawn disturbed area, I guess, in a sense. So it's not any, you know, new
You're
disturbance.
not removing any trees or anything, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I didn't anticipate really any concerns with that. He's cleared it with the rec department, so they're okay with having that down there and what he's proposing to.
Anything else from you, Becky? Steve?
No, I went down, I saw the existing ones, I saw the plans, that makes perfect sense, as long as the rec people are happy with that. All right, I'm good with that.
One of the best fields we have in town.
What is this called? I don't see it on.
It's a letter permit, it's the next for the last letter permit.
Oh, there we
Town
go.
barn.
Sorry, I did see that before.
John, were you guys gonna do that this weekend? Was that your plan? I know.
Probably not this.
Okay.
I think we're gonna try next.
Okay, okay. Because I didn't know if it needed to give you
You wanna work in
write
the
a letter
snow?
for you for tomorrow or not.
Oh, no, I don't need it for
Okay,
tomorrow.
all right.
David?
I'm okay.
Anything? Yeah, I don't have any problem.
Great.
So,
I was just initially worried about whether it would impact any other sports that get played on that one field. But it doesn't appear to be,
Yeah, our league.
because of where you're putting them.
Yeah, our league is pretty much the only league that uses that particular field. Soccer uses the outfield sometimes.
Yeah.
Throughout the season, and we shouldn't have any impact on that.
Yeah, the older kids in playing soccer do use the whole field.
Right.
But it, from the location that you have described, I don't see a problem with it. And it is a beautiful field.
It is.
It even drains properly. It's crowned.
so this is just a letter permit, so
Yeah.
all in favor? All right.
Nicely done.
Very good. Thank
All
you.
of that waiting, look at that.
I know. Well, it's worth it. You know, I only have a couple more years with the league, so I'm trying to get something done for the kids that are coming through because they
Nice.
do a lot for the girls. So.
Yeah, but then you're not gonna be allowed to leave.
Well, that's why I've been with them for 10 years or however long it's been.
Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Bye, John.
All right, Becky, what else do we have?
Meeting
Anything?
minutes. Oh, we did those. We approved
did it?
those. I just
Yep.
didn't use my highlighter on it. I think we're good. I think
All right,
we've done
do I have a
everything.
motion?
I move we adjourn.
Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute.
Whoops.
There is this one thing about the, where did we put that? The Robert's Rules. Did you notice that on page 2 of Robert's Rules, they actually have a special, I'm sorry, on page 3 of Robert's Rules, they actually have a special rule that is made to order for Stephen. It says adjournment.
Yes.
I'm sorry, it's page 4 of 5. And it says, Stephen says that you want the meeting to end.
Yeah, right.
It's right there.
All right, so do I have a motion?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Steve made the motion.
All in favor? Yes.
This is